Am I the butthole for prioritizing my son's dog over my wife's pregnancy? When my son, 14, was 8, we got a dog. He's half Great Dane and half some dog my friend's dog met during an unauthorized absence. My son loves this dog and does all the care for him, except vet stuff, and is a very responsible dog owner. This dog is pretty much his best friend. My wife is 12 weeks pregnant, and ever since we confirmed the pregnancy she has been acting weird around the dog. She avoids him, puts her hands over her stomach when he is around and jolts whenever he makes noise. Today she told me she wants to rehome the dog. I asked her what she was talking about. She said she has been having anxiety that he will jump on her. This is completely unreasonable. He doesn't jump on people. We trained him not to jump on people or run into people very young because he is half Great Dane, and I felt this was important for all dogs, but especially one who could possibly grow to such a large size, which he did. There is no reason for her to think the dog will jump on her. She said that there is no way to know for sure that the dog won't jump on her, and if he does our baby could be hurt. This dog has never so much as growled at her. She said even if the dog doesn't jump on her, her anxiety about it is bad for her health. She said she needs the dog elsewhere for her safety and the baby's. I told her that there was no way. My son got this dog right after he lost his mom and imprinted on him hard. Sometimes I think he loves the dog more than me. I'm not taking his dog. The dog didn't do anything. My wife said I am prioritizing the dog over her pregnancy. The dog isn't a threat to her pregnancy. If this were any other unreasonable request, I would just do it because she is pregnant. I just can't break my son's heart over a fear she has. That makes no sense. Am I being in butthole? Not the butthole. Has she stopped driving? Has she started using a wheelchair so she won't fall? Is she refusing to use stairs? She needs some counseling, genuinely, not being rude, to figure out why she is only fixated on the dog and reacting to sound similar to PTSD symptoms. Did you train the dog not to jump because he pushed her over at some point? Was she pushed by a dog as a child or something? Something got in her head. Or she has always hated the dog and is manipulating you now that she sees her chance to get rid of it. I would microchip the dog, if you haven't already. Make sure info is up to date, and see if she will seek counseling/compromise. Your kid needs his dog. Not the butthole. Am I the butthole for saying that no one was getting any food until I finished my work? I, 29 female, live with my husband Tom, 32 male. He has a child Anna, 5 female, that he sees on weekends. I love Tom a lot, but honestly he can be a little exhausting sometimes. Anna is always sweet. A little background context: in my family, my mother always did much of the work. She had a high-paying job just like my dad did, both of them software engineers, but my dad was often on the couch playing video games while she worked on her laptop and cooked and cleaned all at the same time. I hated the dynamic and brought it up with my mom often, but she had always just defended my dad, saying that he did a lot of work. I promised myself that I was never going to grow up and marry someone like my dad. Now, years later, I'm kind of in that position. It's true that Tom does bring in a lot of money, but so do I. The first year or so was good. Sometimes he forgot things and had to be reminded, but overall he did what he was supposed to. After that, he just started slacking until I was doing the majority of the household chores and work. Every time I brought it up and tried to get him to change, he at first promised he would and then go back to his normal routine a few days later, and then later on he would just sulk every time I asked him to do the chores. I guess I kind of stopped asking because it never got anywhere. Over the weekend, Tom brought Anna over. I was working on a big project on my laptop, and had been since early morning. He went out with Anna for breakfast, and then came back around noon asking what was for lunch. I told him I would sandwiches or something later because I was busy. He kind of looked at me weirdly, and then went and sat on the couch and played video games while Anna napped. Every once in a while he would look over at me, and then go back to playing video games. Later he finally puts down the controller and came up to me and asked why the sandwiches weren't ready yet. I told him that he knew I had a big project I was working on and would do it later. He tried to take the computer away from me coaxingly and saying that Anna would be hungry and that the project could wait. At that point I kind of snapped. I was stressed from the project and I hadn't eaten all day, my fault, and I sort of yelled. I told him that he had arms and legs and a working brain so he could make lunch too, and that he does this all the time, and that he needs to start pulling his weight. He got startled but then yelled back that cooking was my job. I usually do the cooking and usually it isn't a problem because I like cooking. I told him fine. I said I was sorry for trying to push my duties onto him. I had been about to make the sandwiches after a small portion of the work was done, to relax with a bit of cooking before returning to the project, but I then told him that I absolutely would make the sandwiches, but only when all my work was done. He started whining, but I told him either he finds some other form of food for him and Anna, or they wait. Am I the butthole? Not the butthole. Your husband has conditioned you into doing all the work around the house and you've let it slide. You even admitted you stopped asking because it never got anywhere. Now you've got a 32-year-old son on top of a 5-year-old stepdaughter. He is so lazy, immature, and you shouldn't put up with this anymore. Put your foot down with him. He's fully capable of making a few sandwiches for lunch, which is the easiest thing to make, especially as he knows you're busy on a big work project. If you don't like doing the majority of chores, then stop doing them. Tom is obviously lazy, but you're enabling it. Not the butthole. Am I the butthole for calling my boyfriend dumb for boiling salmon? So this happened yesterday. I came home from work in the evening and saw something cooking on the stove. I asked my boyfriend and he said he was boiling salmon. I was taken aback, like, completely. I asked him to repeat what he said and he so casually said it again. I was like, ew, who boils salmon? He made a face and different reply. I told him it wasn't right and that I never heard of salmon being boiled, like egg in water type of boiling. He said it was alright and he likes it cooked that way. I called him dumb for this, to which he reacted by snapping and saying, who the frick says I can't boil salmon? I said, common sense? He replied, frick common sense, I bet it's no longer common sense to eat an apple from an apple tree in this time and age. We had an argument and he started ignoring me, saying he felt hurt and disrespected when I called him dumb and is now waiting for an apology. Am I the butthole? I called my boyfriend dumb because he likes his food cooked differently than I do. Am I the butthole? You're the butthole. A massive one at that. Let me rephrase your title for you and see if that helps. Am I the butthole for verbally abusing my partner because they like a different food than I do? Does that make it clear? You're the butthole. You're the butthole. Poaching/boiling salmon is very much a thing. It's funny you're getting all bent out of shape and upset when you're the one who called him dumb. You're the butthole, Gordon Ramsay. He didn't even ask you to eat it, he cooked it for himself. He likes it, it's cooked, so food safety is not an issue either. Mind your own business. Am I the butthole for not wanting to engage with my niece about her birthday? My niece's birthday is in mid-December. My son was in the hospital almost the entire month of December. During that time I rarely went anywhere except for work and occasionally home to get clean clothes. My dad and sister also frequently came over to help with things, bring food, sit with him while I took a shower, things like that. I did not attend my niece's birthday, wasn't even thinking about it at all. I also forgot to text her happy birthday. My dad also missed her birthday because he was helping with stuff at the hospital. So no one from her mom's side of the family was there, except for her mom. Now that my son is back home, my sister and her husband brought my niece to visit. At one point after my son fell asleep, my niece said to me, just so you know, it really hurt my feelings that you didn't wish me a happy birthday, not even a text. I was a little miffed that she would hold on to something like that when my son and I just went through something horrible, but birthdays are a big deal when you are 15. So I just said it slipped my mind. Happy birthday. My brother-in-law said she was pretty upset no one from your side of the family was there. I just stared at him for a second. Yeah, I was at the hospital, with my son. Kind of weird that you forgot that. He said I didn't forget, but you took over everyone's attention for a month. I don't think it's too much to ask that you apologize to my daughter for making her grandfather miss her birthday. My sister said that we should talk about something else, but I said I thought it would be better to cut the visit short, since my son was already asleep anyway. My niece said, so you would rather us leave than acknowledge you hurt my feelings? I said yes. My sister gave me a hug and said they would visit at a better time, but her husband said, don't worry, honey, your uncle is just a jerk. It's nothing to do with you. Then they left. Now, could I have apologized for missing her birthday and technically being the reason my dad did? Sure. Should I have? She's 15. One would think she's old enough to understand extenuating circumstances. Is that an unrealistic expectation? Update, thanks to all the people that weighed in and gave me perspective on this situation. Between caring for my son and work, I haven't been able to read every comment. However, I have read a decent sampling, and all the diverse opinions helped me to sort through my thoughts. I'll address a few common statements and then tell you what I decided to do. I know it is difficult to comprehend what a situation like this entails if you've never been in it. Several people have told me to take my niece out to dinner and this will all blow over. I am now the primary caretaker of a disabled child alongside working a full-time job. I am in massive medical debt and will probably be filing bankruptcy in the near future. Taking people out to dinner is not in any sense a realistic proposal. I have a time deficit and a money deficit. A lot of commenters also made mention of my sister and her parenting in a negative light. My sister is an amazing person and mother. Despite what I might be feeling towards her husband right now, she is the world's greatest big sister, and I am blessed to have her in my life. She came through for me in so many ways during all of this, as she has many times before in my life. That brings me to my decision. I made the difficult judgment call that I didn't have the appropriate emotional resources right now to handle this conflict without potentially causing further rifts in the family. I wrote my sister an email expressing my gratitude to and love for her. I then explained that I am going to be limiting contact with her husband and daughter temporarily while I handle the situation with my son. I don't have the emotional strength right now to address the issue with them and be 100% confident that I won't say something I might later regret. I told her that however she needs to handle my decision I will accept and respect. I just sent the email, and I am nervous. Even with everything going on right now, I am scared of possibly losing my closeness with my sister. My son is my main priority though, and I have to focus on him. Thank you to everyone for your perspectives. The wide variety of responses helped balance me, and some of you might be the reason I didn't make a big mistake like calling up my brother-in-law and cussing him out. Things will be difficult moving forward, but I have hope that they will improve with time. Your brother-in-law is the A for instigating an issue. You are not an A for forgetting the birthday or making your dad miss the birthday, and your niece isn't an A for telling you it hurt that she didn't even receive a message. But your brother-in-law was really trying to instigate, and that comment when you asked them to leave? What an A. I do have to say, you kinda suck for saying she's old enough to understand you never get too old to get hurt over being forgotten. Not the butthole. The 15-year-old isn't an butthole. She is 15 and is a little self-centered, but she has time to grow out of it. She doesn't have the life experience to truly understand what you and your family have gone through. In her head you weren't the one sick, so why did you forget about her? Her parents on the other hand are huge buttholes for not correcting her when she brought it up and then not explaining to her the reason why people were busy was someone was very sick. If she was still hurt maybe they could have thrown her a half-birthday party in 6 months when your son was hopefully feeling better. Everyone is kind of the butthole. Just so you know, it really hurt my feelings that you didn't wish me a happy birthday, not even a text. She's explaining her feelings very well here. You shouldn't be mad she's communicating with you, granted your reason for forgetting is valid. He said I didn't forget, but you took over everyone's attention for a month. I don't think it's too much to ask that you apologize to my daughter for making her grandfather miss her birthday. Yeah, this is pure buttholery. You clearly have stuff going on and this is him projecting. This is awful behavior from him and it's not your fault your dad didn't remember. My niece said, so you would rather us leave than acknowledge you hurt my feelings? I said yes. Quit taking out your anger on your niece. It's not her fault your son is sick, and it's not her fault you're fighting with her dad. Keep the kids out of your petty bullcrap. Now, could I have apologized for missing her birthday and technically being the reason my dad did? Sure. Should I have? She's 15. One would think she's old enough to understand extenuating circumstances. Is that an unrealistic expectation? It wouldn't have hurt you to say sorry I forgot your b-day. I have a lot going on right now and it's not about you, I'm sorry. She's 15 and you're an adult. Quit projecting your issues and deal with them like an adult. You're not the butthole for having them leave because brother-in-law was being a jerk. You need to learn to keep your arguments with brother-in-law between you and him and not drag a child into it. I'm sure you're hurting right now but that's nobody's fault and taking it out on everyone isn't going to encourage anyone to support you. 1. Do not apologize. 2. She's 15 and knows the difference between right from wrong. She's morphing into a giant butthole just like her father. 3. Your son being in the hospital takes much higher priority than your pathetic brother-in-law's excuse that, wah, you stole my daughter's attention. Your brother-in-law and his daughter need a lengthy time out. Sounds like you're dealing with a family full of toddlers and not a group of decent human beings who care about people other than themselves. Not including your sister since she's a decent human being. Don't feel bad. Do what you have to do, and brother-in-law and your niece can STF you and get over it. Just to drive the point home, I would never celebrate this kid's birthday again anyway after this. Not the butthole. Edit, sorry for the confusion over my wording. I think OP's sister is great and is the only one in her family that is actually a good person who, unfortunately, her daughter isn't taking after since she's clearly learning awful behavior from her father. Brother-in-law is a giant butthole who sounds like a narcissist. Am I the butthole for making something difficult for my son about myself? I had a son 18 years ago. My husband at the time pressured me into having a child despite knowing that I never wanted children. He then passed away in an accident and I was left alone with a child that I knew I could never care for like he deserved. I gave him up when he was a year old. I've tried my best to not think about him and have been living. I remarried and am alright. Well, he recently reached out and made it very clear he wasn't interested in a relationship. We met at a restaurant and he seemed very defensive and there was quite a lot of tension. He asked me a couple questions about certain mental illnesses running in the family and I answered all of them. While I was getting ready to leave, I asked him if he goes to college/university. Just to get rid of some tension. He said he does and he even got a volleyball scholarship. I was a volleyball player too and got a scholarship for the same school. I told him what I mentioned, called it a cool coincidence. He rolled his eyes at me and said it isn't a coincidence if you're my biological mother. I didn't know what to say to that. He continued, "What? Is it too much for you to handle? I'm sorry for having something in common with you, my actual mother. My bad for being born." I said I was sorry but he kept rolling his eyes. I began to feel overwhelmed and I know this isn't fair for me to say, but he was beginning to remind me of his father and I ended up saying, "Look, I'm sorry but I never wanted to be a mother. You're allowed to be angry but please understand that I was forced into having a child I never wanted." He went way to play the victim before storming off. Safe to say, I feel terrible. The only people who know about this are my mother and sister and even they said that I was only thinking about myself in that moment and I shouldn't have brought up anything and just answered his questions. They said that I made it about myself when it's clear that the kid was having a hard time facing me already. My sister even implied that I was a little self-centered. Maybe this isn't the best place to ask but I'm too ashamed to talk about this to anyone else. My sister also said it wouldn't hurt. Am I the butthole? No buttholes here. You weren't trying to make it about you, you were only trying to relate to him. Unfortunately, because you abandon that child he is going to have bad feelings about you whether or not you like it. And that does not make him an that is a normal reaction. These are the consequences of your actions whether or not you like it. Maybe just apologize and move on. It really seems like neither of you want a relationship. Not the butthole, it sounds like he needs some help to get through whatever trauma he has from being adopted but that's not your responsibility. In my opinion you did the right thing. You didn't want a child and weren't prepared or mentally able to raise one. I hope you don't blame yourself too much for this interaction, as his view of you from the beginning makes me believe he wouldn't have liked anything you said regardless. Am I the butthole for laughing in my friend's face because he said I'm financially abusing my boyfriend? My boyfriend, Matt, and I have been together for about 10 months now and he moved in with me about 4 to 5 months ago. I own my flat and I have a somewhat well-paying job. Matt just went back to school part-time, meanwhile working a lower-paying job. He pays for half the food/utilities/dates. I like to travel a lot, but Matt can't really afford it, so I mostly go with my friends, but he came with us for a little winter holiday after Christmas. After we got back, one of my friends, David, who was with us too, came to me saying he wants to talk to me about Matt. David told me that he observed Matt during our vacation and what I was doing to him really wasn't okay. He saw that Matt was struggling to pay for things, often checking if he had enough money. David eventually said that it's wrong of me to expect Matt to pay for half of everything, since I make so much more than him and the fair thing would be to divide things based on our income percentages. Like I pay for 70% of the things and Matt only pays 30% instead of 50 to 50. David told me that I'm not allowing Matt to save any money of his own, trapping him in our relationship, since Matt couldn't afford to live alone, and that's financially abusive. I just laughed at David's face. This is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard. I didn't really try to refute anything he was saying, because none of it made any sense. David got really offended/angry/disappointed or I don't know what. It was kind of hard to read and he said he expected better of me. That he came to me with a genuine concern wanting to be helpful and he didn't expect my immature reaction to it. It has been a couple days since this and I still can't wrap my head around it. I'm thinking maybe I should apologize to David for laughing at him as he really did look concerned, but WTF was he even thinking about? Am I the butthole? Edit. I did make one point to David after laughing, which was that Matt lives with me for free. I only ask for half the utilities, which is less than €50 a month. I, on the other hand, have a pretty big mortgage. To this, David said that Matt lived with his parents before without having to pay rent, so that's irrelevant and I felt like there wasn't much more to be said. What? You aren't married with him so you're not liable to financially support him. He's not even paying rent. He's an adult that made a big boy decision to move out of his parents. Now if he's paying more than he can afford, then accept that he can't afford this lifestyle and needs to move back home. The financial abuse accusation was beyond unreasonable. Not the butthole. Edit to add, if someone accused me of financially abusing my 10-month-old relationship boy who lived in my house rent-free, I would laugh, purely from the confusion and ridiculousness of it all. Which I'm assuming is what OP did. The offense for laughing is way lighter than this incredibly out-of-pocket accusation. Not the butthole. Sounds like Matt gets to choose his discretionary spending after he pays his way in food, utilities, etc. The cost of living. You're not forcing him to travel with you or to do any of the other things that you do. You don't control his money or his accounts or his time. If he wasn't living with you, he'd probably be in a worse position. He's currently living rent-free. That's the sacrifice you make when you cut back hours to go back to study. Again, his decision. David is showing his entitlement and inserting himself where he has absolutely no right or relevance. He needs to get over himself. Everybody sucks here. Presumably he does not know the detail of your finances, so calling you an abuser is way past the line. He's not wrong about 50-50 being a trap for the lower earner, but if you are paying a mortgage and BF isn't paying anything toward it, you do not have a 50-50 split. I'm guessing that you are already paying greater than 70% of base expenses when you factor in mortgage, property taxes, and insurance. But he is your friend, and laughing in his face is an move. You could have responded much better, and you could also have made it clear that the household split is not 50-50 if you wanted to have a real discussion with your friend, or just politely told him that your finances are private and not up for discussion. And not knowing the specifics of the vacation, if it put your partner in an obviously uncomfortable situation, you could have adjusted as appropriate for that specific situation, including choosing less expensive activities if he was struggling. Info: whose idea was it to move in together after only dating for 5 months? Am I the butthole for calling out my parents after they got my bio kid significantly more Christmas gifts than my adopted kids? I, 41 female, have 3 kids: Jane, 17 female, Rachel, 16 female, and Dave, 14 male. Jane is my bio kid, Rachel and Dave are my husbands, 46 male, but I adopted them a couple of years ago. The way my parents have started doing Christmas gifts is they ask each one to send them a wish list. Then they'll get a few things from there as gifts. So we had Christmas dinner and my parents gave all the kids their gifts. Jane had a huge gift bag as well as a fairly big wrapped parcel. Rachel and Dave each had small gift bags. Well, my parents got Jane everything she had on her wish list, about 10 books and one of those replica messy shirts. Rachel got a pair of Tiffany studs and Dave got AirPods. I was surprised, because my parents bought Jane everything she wanted but only got the others relatively small, but mainly just one item, when Jane got many. Obviously Rachel and Dave were a little upset. Rachel's I can kind of get because it's Tiffany, but Dave had the same messy shirt on his wish list that my parents got for Jane, but didn't bother for Dave. I told my parents what they did is really unfair. My mom said this is the gifts and what they thought was fair. I got kind of annoyed and replied it's a shame they don't think of Rachel and Dave as their real grandkids, but my dad got pissed, and said we were greedy and to be happy with what they have. My sister said I need to apologize for my outburst, but I don't think what I said was that bad. My husband agrees. She said I should post on Am I the Butthole, so was I the You're the butthole. I'm not one for monetary breakdown of gifts, and I would said this is a situation if there was actually a big monetary discrepancy. But you're an especially after your comments, and here's why. Jane got about 10 books and a messy jersey. You can get brand new books for around $20, $25. I'll count the higher option, so $25 by 10 equals $250. Messy jerseys can range anywhere from $50, $200. I'll count the most expensive option, so $250 plus $200 equals $450. So total of $450 for Jane, counting the highest options for everything. Rachel. The Tiffany studs are these ladybug ones for Rachel and AirPods Max for Dave. My parents' reasoning was money-wise it's more than Jane, but it's still only one item from their list. OP's comment above. I searched on the ladybug studs I found are $840. $840. Dave. $549. In conclusion. OP, it looks like even getting Jane every single item she wanted doesn't compare to just one item from your other kid's wish list. You're looking at quantity, but seriously? You make your parents sound like they're discriminating against bio and adopted, but they're really not. Jane wanted cheaper items than her brother and sister. They're not going to get her one $25 book to stick to a one gift per kid rule. I think this is completely fair. Edit, OP posted a comment with the exact titles Jane got. U/Reddit again kindly did a cost breakdown, they add up to around $200. I mean, they got her Tiffany jewelry and AirPods. How is that not a good gift? You're the butthole. Edit, OP clarified it's AirPod Maxes and the specific jewelry. And admitted these are each more expensive than all her daughter's gifts combined. Edit 2, OP, please have your parents call me. Those Tiffany ladybugs are gorgeous. I'd love a pair.